I had been married to Beth Anne for 11 years when the event that sparked this story unfolded. We met in 10th grade, began dating just before summer vacation between 11th and 12th grades, and from then on, we were inseparable. We planned to marry after graduating from college, and a month after our graduation, we tied the knot. Altogether, we had been a couple for just over 18 years. Both of us were focused on our careers, and we decided against having children, much to the dismay of our parents. To avoid the hassle of birth control, I opted for a vasectomy. Our careers flourished, and after 9 years in an apartment, we finally saved enough for a substantial down payment on a beautiful house in a great neighborhood. Our neighbors were a blend of young couples like us and more established older couples. It didn't take long for us to become woven into the fabric of the community. We enjoyed backyard barbecues, card nights, dinner parties, and occasional nights out on the town with our neighbors. Interestingly, despite the many couples our own age, we were closest to Jason and Glenda, who were in their mid-40s. They lived next door, and our backyards seamlessly merged since there was no fence between us. We had a 6-person hot tub on our patio, while they had an in-ground swimming pool. Both of us had barbecue grills, and we freely moved between each other's spaces. It was not unusual for me to come home from work and find Jace and Glenda in our hot tub, or for them to look out their kitchen window and see Beth and me splashing around in their pool. Often, I'd come home from a long day to find Beth, Glenda, and Jace preparing dinner together on our patio or theirs. It felt very much like family. Jason was about 6, 2 inches and 185 pounds, with a lean athletic build that he maintained through a gym he'd set up in his basement. Glenda, at 44, was stunning and had a physique that many 10 years younger would envy. She too stayed in shape with their home gym. Though she wasn't an overt exhibitionist, Glenda often wore tight clothes, short skirts, and skimpy bikinis. I'd be lying if I said being around her didn't stir something in me. In a close-knit group like ours, joking and harmless flirting were common, and to be honest, it was mostly Glenda who flirted with me. When you're as close to the Carlsons, Jason and Glenda, as we were, you get to know each other well. Glenda discovered that I had a fondness for sexy lingerie and was particularly attracted to high heels and stockings, while Beth didn't share these interests. Beth found sexy lingerie frivolous and a waste of money and disliked high heels, saying anything beyond a 2-inch heel made her ankles ache and swell. When Beth and Jason weren't around, Glenda would occasionally tease me with comments like, "If I were your woman, I'd never wear anything but sexy lingerie," or "Maybe I should buy a pair of 6-inch stilettos just for you." On a few occasions, she'd lift the hem of her skirt or dress just enough to give me a quick glimpse of a thong or lacy panties. I enjoyed Glenda's flirtation and attention, but never considered it serious. I assumed she was as content in her marriage as I was in mine, and that her playful behavior, though risque, was harmless. The event that kicked off this story took place on a Saturday during a barbecue at Glenda and Jason's house. The entire neighborhood was there, and about 2 hours into the party, I found myself needing to use the restroom. I went inside and discovered that both bathrooms were already occupied. I was so desperate that I was holding myself and shifting from foot to foot. I could have rushed home, but I didn't think I could hold it that long. Knowing the Carlsons' house well, I headed straight for the master bedroom, where I knew there was an additional toilet. I was shaking off the last drops when I heard the bedroom door open and close. Then Beth's voice came through. "What's so important that you had to get me up here for a private talk?" "I'm incredibly turned on and need you," Jason replied. "For heaven's sake, Jason, Frank and Glenda are just downstairs, and I already gave you 2 hours at lunch yesterday." "2 hours isn't enough. I need more, please." "All right, but just a quick one. Lock the door while I take off my panties." From where I was at the toilet, the large mirror above the double sinks provided a view of the bedroom. Jason locked the door, and then they made love. I was initially stunned, but I quickly shook it off and was about to barge into the bedroom when a voice in my head advised me to wait and see what unfolded. Curiosity got the better of me, so I held back and watched the scene in the mirror. It turned out to be a quickie, lasting only 3 or 4 minutes before Jason pulled out. Beth then stood up, grabbed her panties, and I expected her to come into the bathroom and discover she'd been caught. Instead, she wiped herself with the panties, put them back on, and Jason asked, "Can we get together tomorrow?" "No, Frank and I are heading to his parents' house for a birthday party," Beth replied. "Monday, then?" Jason asked. "You know better. Mondays and Thursdays are for Julius. You'll have to wait until Tuesday," she said, opening the door to check if it was clear. They then left the room. I stood there, processing the revelations. Beth was not only sleeping with Jason, but also regularly involved with her boss, Julius Barco, who owned the company where she worked. I waited until they had cleared out before rejoining the party. As I stepped onto the patio, I saw Beth chatting with Glenda. I wondered if Glenda had any idea that Jason was cheating on her. And with the woman she was talking to, there was no way to find out without asking, and I wasn't ready to confront that just yet. Since leaving the bathroom, my mind had been racing with thoughts on how to handle this new information. One thing was clear: Beth and I were finished. Now I needed to figure out how to bring everything to a close. Around 10, the party began to wind down, and Beth and I headed home. After a few too many drinks at the barbecue, Beth often became affectionate, so I anticipated she would want to be intimate once we were in bed. Typically, our lovemaking started with me going down on Beth, but that night was different. I was furious that she had cheated on me, but I was even more enraged by the fact that she thought so little of me that she would come to me still tainted by her affair. She hadn't cleaned up after her encounter with Jason, and had immediately stripped and gotten onto the bed, ready for me as soon as we arrived in the bedroom. No way, not happening, I thought. I realized she had likely done this to me before without my noticing, but that was in the past and beyond my control now. We ended up making love twice that night. I spent Sunday, as usual, working in the yard while Beth did laundry and cleaned up after breakfast. As I was pulling weeds from the flower beds, Beth came outside in her bikini and went next door to jump in the pool. About 5 minutes later, Jason followed her into the pool. I didn't expect anything more than casual conversation, and maybe some laughter, considering Glenda might arrive at any moment. They knew I was preoccupied with a list of chores that needed completing before we went to my parents' house to celebrate my mom's 50th birthday. After finishing my chores, I went inside to shower and get dressed. As I was getting dressed, Beth came in to shower. Once she was dressed, she mentioned she had enjoyed the pool and was glad we had access to it, though it was unfortunate I couldn't join them due to my to-do list. I replied that she didn't need me there, since she had Jason and Glenda for company. "Glennie went shopping," Beth said. "She asked me to join her, but I wanted a lazy day, so I passed." Perfect, I thought. Sloppy seconds for Frank tonight. It was clear to me that, with Glenda away and knowing I wouldn't be stopping by, they had taken advantage of the situation. The evening at my parents' was your typical family get-together, and when it was over, we went on home and went to bed. We are made love, and when I was done, I rolled over and fell asleep. I left for work early in the morning so I could spend some personal time on the computer. After doing some research, I had compiled a list of several investigative agencies and divorce attorneys by the time I needed to focus on work. Just before lunchtime, I went to the legal department and showed Stan my list of attorneys, asking for his recommendation. Stan reviewed the list and suggested that Martin Castle would be the best choice. I then crossed the hall to security, where I asked Bill to review my list of investigative agencies. He recommended Phoenix Investigative Services and offered to connect me with a contact there. I agreed, and he quickly made a call, securing an appointment for me. On Monday night, Beth didn't make any move to initiate intimacy, which led me to believe she must have been satisfied by Julius earlier in the day. On Tuesday, I met with Alex Bresley at the Phoenix offices, where we discussed my situation, and I paid a retainer. After leaving Phoenix, I went to my appointment with Martin Castle. I explained the situation and mentioned that Phoenix was already on the case. Martin assured me he would begin the necessary paperwork immediately. That evening, when I got home, I pretended to have a cough until bedtime. As we went upstairs, Beth suggested making love, which made me question her intentions. She had been with Julius on Monday, but hadn't tried to be intimate with me afterward. Yet, on Tuesday, she was eager to be with me, having clearly been with Jason earlier. Reflecting on the past few weeks, I noticed a pattern. She never wanted to make love on the days she spent with Julius, but was always eager on other nights. We made love, and after I settled onto my side of the bed expecting to go to sleep. But Beth had other ideas, and we made love again. The rest of the week passed, and I made an effort to act normally around Beth. We had made love every night except Mondays and Thursdays, which I knew were reserved for Julius. Now that I was aware of what was really happening, I could recognize the signs when Jason had been with her. Before my discovery in Jason and Glenda's bathroom, I had always believed Beth's explanation that she was wet because she was eager to come home and make love to me. I managed to get through the weekend without giving Beth any hint that I was onto her. I kept a close watch and ensured she couldn't slip away from me, so I knew she hadn't had a chance to be with Jason. Given this, I decided to go down on her Sunday night, figuring it would be the last time. On Monday, Beth wasn't in the mood, and her panties in the dirty clothes hamper confirmed that Julius had been with her. Tuesday morning, I received a call from Phoenix and scheduled an appointment for Wednesday. That night, Beth was affectionate, and I made love to her, knowing it would be the last time since she would be out of the house by the weekend. Wednesday's meeting with Phoenix held no surprises, as I already knew what their investigation would reveal. The report detailed Beth's visits to a motel on Mondays and Thursdays with Julius, and another motel on Tuesdays and Fridays with Jason. Phoenix had bribed the desk clerks at both motels, securing audio and video evidence of Beth with Julius and Jason. "It's all on the CDs," the investigator told me as he handed them over. "It won't be admissible in court, but it's undeniable proof, just as you wanted." I thanked him and left the office. Back at the attorney's office, I told him I'd call with the details of when and where. At home, I copied the footage of Julius onto one CD and the footage of Jason onto another. I also printed out some stills of Julius and Beth and prepared everything for the next steps. On Thursday, I called Julius and asked if we could meet for lunch. I told him I was planning a surprise for Beth and would appreciate his help setting it up. Knowing that Thursdays were his lunch dates with Beth, I wasn't surprised when he said he had a prior engagement he couldn't change. He suggested Friday instead, and I agreed. My goal was to plant a seed of curiosity in Julius's mind, making him wonder about the surprise and think about it for the next 24 hours. There was a chance he might mention it to Beth, but that would only heighten her curiosity about what I was planning. I anticipated that Beth would keep quiet about it when she came home that evening, wanting me to believe she was genuinely surprised. That evening, I tried to make love with Beth, even though I knew she rarely was interested on the days she saw Julius. I wasn't surprised when she said she was too tired, but I had hoped for one last intimate moment before revealing everything. On Friday morning, as I kissed Beth goodbye, I couldn't help but smile, knowing that it was the last kiss I would ever give her. Not only was I saying farewell as I left for work, but I was also bidding goodbye to our marriage and everything it represented. At noon, I met Julius at Tricochi's for lunch. After we ordered, he asked, "So, what's this surprise you're planning for Beth, and how can I assist?" "I'm going to serve her with divorce papers," I replied, "and I need your help deciding how to present them." "You've got to be kidding me. You want me to help you with this?" "No, I don't need you to serve her," I clarified. "What I need from you is to decide whether I should file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, or adultery." I slid a folder across the table. "Take a look inside, and it will all make sense." He opened the folder and stared at the 4 8x10 photos, his face draining of color. "This is how it's going to play out, Jules," I said calmly. "This is a no-fault state, so regardless of how I file, Beth and I will split everything 50-50ths. That means I'll have to sell the house and give her half of the proceeds. I love that house and don't want to part with it. To keep it, I'll need to come up with her share, which I don't have. That's where you come in. I need 2 things from you. First, I need a certified check for $25,000 to buy out Beth's half of the house. Second, I need you to give Beth a $200 a week raise so our incomes are equal, and I won't have to pay alimony." "You're out of your mind if you think I'm going to agree to that," Julius exclaimed. "That's your choice," I replied calmly. "Here's the deal. You do the two things I've asked, and I file under irreconcilable differences. The divorce proceeds, and I move on with my life. If you don't, I'll go the adultery route. Since this is a state where that's allowed, I'll have you served at your office for alienation of affections. I'll also send all the evidence I have of you and Beth to your wife. Remember the 50/50ths split? If she decides to file for divorce, half of everything you own, including your business, will go to her. Are you willing to risk that?" "The papers will be served today, but you get to choose which ones. You have just over an hour and a half to decide. I need your certified check by 2 o'clock. If I don't have it by then, I'll instruct my attorney to proceed with the adultery claim. The moment I hang up with him, I'll send a messenger service to deliver the package to your wife." I stood up, left my lunch untouched, and walked out, leaving Julius to cover the tab. Back at the office, I resumed my work. I wasn't surprised when, at 1:40, a woman in a Quicksilver messenger service shirt arrived at my office with an envelope. After signing for it, I opened it to find a cashier's check for $25,000. I immediately called my attorney and instructed him to serve Beth with the irreconcilable differences paperwork after she got off work at 5. I left work early to ensure I got home before Beth. It wasn't surprising when my cell rang at 5 minutes past 5 and the caller ID showed it was Beth. I let it go to voicemail. I had expected her to call sooner. I figured Julius might have gone back to work and informed Beth about the situation, prompting her to reach out and ask me to hold off on any decisions until we could discuss things. It seemed Julius had kept quiet about it. When Beth walked through the front door at 5:35, she was immediately greeted by 3 suitcases and 5 trash bags piled up just inside. I was in the living room, watching the early news and sipping on a beer, when she burst in, demanding, "What is this nonsense about a divorce?" "No nonsense, Beth. I'm ending this." "I don't understand what's going on, Frank. Whatever it is, we can fix it. There's no need for you to move out." "Tell me, Beth, can you undo your time with Julius? Can you erase every Monday and Thursday at the Motel 6? I'm not moving out. You are." Her face drained of color as the reality sank in. I continued, "I filed for divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences to keep things quiet. Only you, me, and Julius need to know the full story. If you sign the papers and move out, we can keep this discreet." I stood up and walked over to the VCR, pressing play. The TV screen showed footage of Julius and her together. "You really don't want me to change the filing to adultery, do you? Do you want this to go public? Imagine your mother's reaction, or what your friends and relatives would say. You'll need your job, Beth. Regardless of how I file, you'll need it. Do you think you'll keep it if I send this footage to Julius's wife?" "Ultimately, it's up to you. It doesn't matter to me which route you choose as long as you leave. We don't need to discuss anything, Beth. I don't want to hear why it happened, when it started, or any apologies. I don't need to hear that it was only sex, or that you love only me. All I want is to hear the door close behind you as you leave. So, just gather your things, put them in your car, and go." "That's it? 18 years just down the drain like that?" "You're the one who pulled the lever, Beth, not me." I ejected the tape from the VCR and handed it to her. "Here's your copy. Don't worry, I have plenty more if I need to send them out." I went into the kitchen, grabbed another beer, and then headed out to the garage to putter around and pass the time. Through the garage window, I watched Beth load her car with the suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. Once everything was packed, she got into the car, backed down the driveway, and drove away. During the process of setting up the divorce, I deliberately kept Jason out of the loop. I had a different plan for him. Given that he had been involved with my wife, I was considering exacting my own form of retribution by pursuing a relationship with him behind his back, just as he had with mine. I stayed away from home over the weekend, avoiding contact with Jason and Glenda until Sunday evening. I was relaxing in the hot tub, sipping a beer, when they both arrived to join me. "I haven't seen Beth all weekend," Glenda remarked. "Beth doesn't live here anymore." "She doesn't? Why? What happened?" "I caught her cheating on me, so I kicked her out." I watched Jason's reaction closely as I delivered the news, noting a flicker of fear cross his face as Glenda responded, "I find that hard to believe. You two always seemed so perfect together." "I thought so too, until I received an anonymous email suggesting I check what Beth was doing during her lunch breaks on Mondays and Thursdays. Turns out she was spending those times with her boss at the Motel 6. Rad. You must have been devastated." "I was. I thought we had a good thing going, but I guess I was just blinded by illusion." "So what's next for you?" "I filed for divorce, and now I'm just focusing on moving forward with my life." "Well, Jace and I are here for you," Glenda said. "Thanks. It's good to have such supportive friends," I replied, making sure to glance at Jason, who offered a weak smile in response. I wasn't planning on making a direct move on Glenda. My strategy was to let her adjust to Beth's absence, and then, once she started showing interest, I'd reciprocate and see where things could go. I expected Glenda would back off a bit, assuming I was still mending from my failed marriage, but I was wrong. Instead, her flirting became more pronounced almost immediately. There were friendly kisses that bordered on passionate, frequent touches, and even some playful footsie under the table. 2 weeks after Beth moved out, I was in the hot tub on a Thursday night when Glenda came over and joined me. She was wearing one of her skimpiest bikinis, and I found myself getting instantly aroused. When she glanced down at the water, I noticed a faint smile on her face. "How's it going?" she asked. "So-so. Any plans for the weekend?" "I'm supposed to attend a cocktail party hosted by one of my clients, but I'm trying to find a way to skip it." "Why's that?" "It's one of those events where showing up alone would make me stick out like a sore thumb." "Would you go if you had a date?" "Sure." "Great. What time are we heading out?" "What?" "Jace is out of town and won't be back until Monday, so I'm free this weekend." She hesitated for a moment before adding, "Unless you'd be embarrassed to be seen with me." "Don't be silly, Glennie. I'd be thrilled to have you with me. Every guy there will be envious, and I might have to fend off some jealous looks just to keep you by my side." "Well, aren't you the smooth talker?" She leaned in and kissed me softly on the lips. I teased her by brushing my tongue against her lips, and she looked at me with surprise. Rising from the tub, she said, "I need to find something suitable to wear." Then, with a playful smile, she asked, "Want me to wear stockings and heels?" "Absolutely." She laughed, saying, "Consider it done," before heading home. As I watched her leave, I couldn't help but think that with Jason away, it might be the perfect opportunity to ramp up the flirting and see where things might lead. I picked up Glenda at 6:30, and when she opened the door, I was taken aback. She was wearing an exquisite little black cocktail dress paired with 4-inch pumps. She looked both incredibly sexy and elegantly classy, a true showstopper. During the drive, the dress rode up slightly, revealing a lot more leg, and I noticed her thigh-high nylons. I couldn't help but keep glancing at the tantalizing sight, and Glenda's satisfied smile showed she was well aware of the effect she was having on me. At the party, I introduced Glenda as my girlfriend. We spent the evening sipping champagne and mingling. Glenda attracted many admiring glances, and one acquaintance even asked me where I'd found her and if she had a sister. As the party began to wind down around 11, Glenda made her intentions clear. "I've had enough champagne. How about we head back to your place for a nightcap or two?" When we arrived at the house, I went into the kitchen to mix a couple of drinks. When I returned to the living room, I found Glenda seated on the couch, completely naked except for her nylons and high heels. I took in the enticing scene and, handing her the drink, said with a grin, "Well, this is quite a surprise." "Why?" she asked as she took the drink. "I've been making advances since the day you moved in." We spent the entire night together, making love. I woke up the next morning, gently extricated myself from the still sleeping Glenda, and headed for the shower. As I was washing my hair, Glenda pushed aside the shower curtain and joined me. I washed her back while she took care of my front, which led to inevitable results. We ended up back in bed, made love twice, showered again, and then went out for breakfast at the village inn. As we sat across from each other, Glenda remarked, "You seem surprised about last night." "I was," I admitted. "You've always flirted with me, but I thought that was all it was meant to be." "The truth is, I've wanted you almost since the day you moved in next door," she confessed. "I thought you were too involved with Beth to notice my hints." "Why? I thought you and Jason were solid." "Jason's an asshole. He started cheating on me before our marriage license was even signed. I've wanted to get back at him, but I never found the right person until I met you. Honestly, I expected you to pick up on my flirting a long time ago." "Why would you think that?" "I figured you might want some revenge on Jason for being with Beth." "You knew? He started seeing her 3 weeks after you moved in?" "You've got to be kidding me. That was 2 years ago?" "Yep." "Now I feel like an idiot," I admitted. "I only found out a few weeks ago, and for 2 years I had no idea. Why are you still with him if he's been cheating on you all this time?" "I didn't discover what he was up to until 3 years into our marriage. By then, I was deeply entrenched in a lifestyle I didn't want to abandon. Jason has no idea that I know about his infidelities, but I do. And because I know, I plan on keeping you as long as you want me." "I still don't get why me. I would have thought you'd seek revenge much sooner." "For a long time, I lacked the courage. When I finally gathered the nerve, I decided not to act until I met someone truly worth risking my marriage for. That person turned out to be you." "Worth risking your marriage? You really think I'm worth that?" "If we were caught and I had to leave Jason, you'd take me in, wouldn't you?" "In a heartbeat, sweetie. In a fucking heartbeat." Glenda stayed with me all weekend, only leaving an hour before Jason's flight was due to arrive. The only downside to the weekend was that I was a bit annoyed with Glenda for not telling me about Jason and Beth sooner. Annoyed, but not enough to stop me from enjoying every moment with her. For the next year, Glenda and I made the most of every opportunity we had together. She relished the thrill of being with a younger man, and the fact that a man 10 years her junior desired her only added to her sense of allure. She was eager to do whatever it took to keep me satisfied. While Glenda was keeping me happy, my divorce proceeded smoothly. Beth agreed to all terms, and we divided our assets equally. I used the money from Julius to buy out Beth's share of the house. After that, she vanished from my life, and I never saw or heard from her again. One weekend, while Jason was away at a golf outing in California, Glenda and I spent from 6 p.m. on Friday until 3 p.m. on Sunday, thoroughly enjoying each other's company. Before I left to return to my place, Glenda asked, "Do you think you could see yourself living with me?" "That's a silly question, sweetie. You can move in with me today. We can have you packed and out of here before Jason's plane lands." "I'm not thinking of making such a quick move. I've decided to divorce Jason. The only downside is losing this house. It'll have to be sold as part of the asset split." "No problem, sweetie. I'll lend you the money to buy him out. You keep the house, and once your divorce is final, I'll sell my place, marry you, and move in with you." "You'd really do that?" "I've said it before, and I'll say it again. In a heartbeat, sweetie. In a fucking heartbeat." And that's exactly how it played out. Glenda had amassed considerable evidence on Jason over the years and presented him with an ultimatum similar to the one I had given Julius: irreconcilable differences or adultery. Jason opted to avoid the adultery route. The day Glenda filed for divorce, I listed my house for sale. It sold quickly, and the deal closed around the same time Glenda's divorce was finalized. Just a week after her divorce was final, we had a civil ceremony and got married. Glenda added my name to the title of her house, and I used part of the proceeds from my sale to install a hot tub on the patio next to the swimming pool, with the rest going toward paying down her mortgage. Despite what some might think, we lived happily ever after.